Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on the Inside Winston Cup Racing. I'm in Mooresville, North Carolina at the Penske South race team. This is the home of the Miller Genuine Draft Fords, which Rusty Wallace drives in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. Of course, Rusty and the other Winston Cup drivers are at the new Hampshire International Speedway for the running of the Slick 5300 this afternoon. And Bill Weber is in our studios in Charlotte, North Carolina with the latest news and a look at that race. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Ned, and hello again, everyone. The Winston Cup weekend in New England explodes this afternoon with the third running of the Slick 5300 live right here on TNN. Now, a year ago, this race was a survival test in scorching heat on a deteriorating track. Today, it's a pressure-packed chase on a resurfaced speedway with a whopping Unocal bonus of more than $100,000 and a $50,000 payoff to the point leader when the checkered flag falls. We'll have all the details. Then we'll meet the team behind Rusty's team, a rare inside look at the corporate side of this eye-catching sport. It's all ahead on the morning edition of IWCR for Sunday, July 9th.
Today's show is brought to you by Texaco Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. Red Dog Beer, bold yet smooth, unusually easy to drink. You are your own dog. And by Goodyear, #1 in racing, #1 in tires. This segment of IWCR is brought to you by Texaco Haviland Formula 3. Add more life to your car.
The Winston Cup Series rumbles to the green flag this afternoon with just 16 points separating first and third. The best starting position among those three today is 18th. But 2 years ago, Rusty Wallace won this race starting 33rd. It's a tough track to pass on, and that means Mark Martin has a big advantage. He's on the pole. Randy Pemberton will work pit road for TNN this afternoon, and he's got the pre-race report from a weekend where the big news ranges from bonuses to sway bars.
As qualifying approached for race number 16 on the 31-race Winston Cup schedule, it appeared that rain might wash out round one. But as soon as time trials got underway, the threatening skies went away and the precipitation held off as 41 car Cal Challenge bonus to the man that could capture both the #1 starting spot and the checkered flag this afternoon. But just as unpredictable as the weather in Loudon, so were the laps of some of the pre-qualifying pole favorites, including Jeff Gordon, who lost control of his Chevy and caught the wall with a clocking of 30.77.
First round of qualifying, brushed the wall, relive it for us. What happened?
I was trying to take about a 5th or 6th place car for qualifying to the pole, and you know, I think that we're a team that goes for it, and especially for qualifying, we've been, you know, very fortunate to have 7 poles, and so we're going for that 8th one and got the car on the edge. I guess when you put the car on the edge enough times, eventually it's going to get away from you, and I just got a little bit too loose off of turn 2, smacked the right rear, brought the front end around, and you know, I just had to come around and limp around and just wait for today. So, you know, thank goodness we went out there. The car's actually probably better today than it was yesterday. Maybe it's knocked some sense into me or something, but we're going to be in good shape. It's a different situation for us, and it's going to be something, it's going to be a great test for this team and for myself to see what we can do with it.
Ted Musgrave, hoping for his first pole of 95, was quick in practice, but his best lap at 126.952 was only 17th best. But the men everyone were talking about when qualifying concluded were Joe Nemechek, 3rd fastest, with a 29.74. Robert Presley, 2nd quick at 29.70. And Valvoline Ford driver Mark Martin, who manhandled his Roush T-Bird to the tune of 29.56, breaking Bill Elliott's track record with a speed of 128.815 for his 2nd pole of 1995.
Got a chance to pick up $200,000. That's a lot of bonus money.
It's a ton. It'll, you know, that'd really be nice. We're just anxious to win another race. You know, it's we've had a great season. The team has done fantastic. It's an honor to be driving for a bunch of guys that their heart's in it, like this team, and they're working like this team is working.
Mark's not the only guy up for some extra green in the Slick 5300. Point leaders Sterling Marlin, Jeff Gordon, and Dale Earnhardt held a press conference Friday concerning the $50,000 in cash from Gatorade to the guy leading the Winston Cup points after the checkers, which marks the official halfway mark in the season.
Definitely changed the focus of the race right there. And, you know, Sterling and I was scuffing some fenders there on the last lap. I can just imagine what we're going to scuff this week for that. That's $50,000. And we really appreciate everything Gatorade does for us. They support our sport in a lot of different ways, and from the qualifying races at Daytona through the, the $10,000 money they give you each week if you got the patch on. And you haven't got it on.
It's on Sunday, so
But it's great coming up here racing for $50,000. We appreciate it.
In other news from New Hampshire, Ford and Pontiac teams were given another 1/8 inch on the rear spoilers in an attempt by NASCAR to tighten up competition with the Chevy Monte Carlo teams. Tidbits pertaining to the rule change: Chevy leads the manufacturer's race 126-92 over Ford. Chevy has led 67% of the laps this year, Ford 26 and Pontiac 7. Monte Carlos have managed 12 poles, Fords now have 4, and it's zip for Pontiac. And race wins stand 12 for Chevy, Ford has 2, and Pontiac 1.
Thanks, Randy. Oh, and about those sway bars, well, you can run the rear sway bar this week at Loudon, but the rumor is you won't be able to use it next week. We'll find out when we get to Pocono. The Unocal Challenge is $106,000 today with a little change. Mark Martin is the only man that can win it. He's on the pole in the Valvoline Ford. Rookie Robert Presley starts second in the Skoll Chevrolet. Burger Wars in row 2. Joe Nemechek's first Winston Cup start came on this track. He's also won here in the Busch Series. The Burger King Chevy is third. Bill Elliott's McDonald's Ford off the strong run at Daytona starts fourth. Bobby Labonte is ninth in points and fifth on the grid in the Interstate Battery Chevrolet. Rick Mast finished ninth here last year in the Skoll Ford. Ricky Rudd's Tide Ford is the defending champion. Kyle Petty in the Coors Light Silver Bullet has 1 win, 5 DNFs, and is 25th in the Winston Cup points chase. Michael Waltrip still looking for the elusive first Winston Cup win. The Pennzoil Pontiac starts ninth, and Ken Schrader's winless streak is at 123 races now. Dale Earnhardt will start 18th today. Rusty Wallace rolls off 20th in the Miller Genuine Draft Ford, and Sterling Marlin's Kodak Chevrolet starts 31st. Congratulations to our good friend and my old boss, Eddie Gossage. He's leaving his cush PR position at Charlotte Motor Speedway for a big title and a full-time job at the new Texas Motor Speedway. Actually, he'll be the executive vice president and general manager down there. It's a frightening thought. And also, congratulations to Kim and Jeff Burton. Their first child was born earlier this week. They had a baby girl. The green flag in Loudon is at 1:15 this afternoon, live right here on TNN. Don't miss the show. We'll take a look at the starting lineup, and we'll have the post-race report tonight at 7 o'clock. Coming up, a trip to Milwaukee, Wisconsin with Rusty Wallace, a look behind the scenes at the Miller Genuine Draft team. Right now, here is the starting lineup, and we'll go back to Ned in just 2 minutes. Don't forget, live green flag coverage begins at 1 o'clock right here on TNN of the Slick 50 300.
Property owners.
Welcome back, everyone. Rusty Wallace and the Miller Genuine Draft team are not having the kind of year that they would hope for. By some people's standards, it wouldn't be too bad. They already have 1 victory and have been climbing in the Winston Cup point standings, but this team is accustomed to winning 6, 8, and sometimes 10 races per year. I predicted in the second half of the year that they're going to be much more competitive than they were in the first half of the year. You know, there's more to this sport than building cars here in the race shop, taking them to the track and qualifying and then racing on Sunday. There's a business end to it also. And recently, Rusty Wallace made a trip to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is headquarters for the Miller Brewing Company, his sponsor, and he allowed some of our guys to go along, and we thought it might be of interest to you.
It was just an average Tuesday for Rusty Wallace, arriving early at his private hangar in Concord, North Carolina, phoning into a morning radio show to promote an appearance the following day in Florida, then checking the weather before departing in his personal plane for the trip to Milwaukee. The traveling party included Rusty, business partner Don Miller, fellow Ford driver Dick Trickle, and pilot Bill Brooks. But on this trip, it was Rusty at the controls, with Brooks by his side, as we taxied down the runway and took off for our 2.5-hour trip to Milwaukee. At the brewery, Rusty met with CEO Jack McDonough, a casual get-together that included business spiced with humor. If this is the team behind Rusty that you see, this is the team behind him that you don't see.
Well, our attitude is that we have race fans out there who like to drink beer, and our best way of rewarding those race fans who drink Miller beer is to show great Miller Racing products out there that they can cheer for. And so it's been a terrific link-up with Rusty Wallace and his NASCAR team to have a high-quality team that looks great and wins and thrills the race fans. And it's sort of our way of thanking the race fans for drinking Miller Genuine Draft. They get to watch a great team.
After a business lunch in the company cafeteria, it was time for a speedy lap around the office just to say hi and make certain no one has forgotten you.
Mike Wolf, I know this guy.
Holy smokes. Hey, man.
Hi, buddy. How you doing? Good to see you, man.
You're all wired up.
Where's my picture?
Yeah, find one quick. What's happening, man?
What do we do? What a deal.
At the racetrack, it's easy to find Rusty's Ford, a rolling reminder of his favorite beer. But like all sponsors, it's critical to reinforce the relationship at the point of sale.
Remember the program we did in Indiana, where people can win the chance to have a jacket autographed by you?
This is the deal we did for all the racing in Indiana, right?
Right, Bobby and Larry Dixon. So once we get done, there's a few jackets that need your John Hancock on it. So we traded the gloves for the jackets.
That's all right.
Two things to sign.
Oh, Kelly, I can't wear all this at one time.
This is for that promotion in Indiana, and everybody wants a jacket signed by Rusty.
Okay. Well, wonderful. I'll do it.
This is your chair. Have at it.
All right. Flew all the way to Milwaukee to sign these jackets. What's the deal was? Hey, Steve, did you get Ray Hall to do this? Did he do it? No way.
Racing is Rusty's business, and on weekends, this is his office, where he hopes to win races and make headlines. In Milwaukee, this is the office where they keep track of those headlines, measuring Miller's mileage in black and white.
Is this all on NASCAR or all on me?
This is, it varies between, we split it up between Rusty articles, name and title race articles,
right?
But they've all got Miller mentions.
And mentions?
And mentions. They all mention Miller, or show a photo. Like these ones over here, they'll have you have your photo in from wins. And then we do it for IndyCar and drag racing, and we start doing it for Kenny and Red Dog now, too.
And while Rusty meets with management to discuss plans for the future, part of the plan is already unfolding 2 floors below.
I wanted to call you and go over what we've got going on, kind of an update for the Miller Junior Draft 400 in Richmond.
Okay.
Since September 9th is going to be upon us pretty quickly.
Now, Rusty's visit to Miller also included this mandatory pit stop, so he could load up on some of the brewery's newest business tools.
I've got Flint Black, okay? Brooks and Dunn, like that band. Page Plant, really like that band. 3 shirts. My prized possession so far. Carry my hair dryer, my portable iron, and this baby. A black bag, just like this one. This is what I do when I come to the breweries, you know, I snoop around and get all the free stuff. You know?
Rusty Wallace knows that behind the desk and on the track, this entire team is working hard for 2 reasons. One is the reward of winning races, and the other?
Sell Miller Genuine Draft, sell Miller products as a whole, and I think it does a really good job for us. All of our distributors, all of our customers, and ultimately the final consumer that follows racing has an affinity to what we're doing with all of our promotional programs, all of our advertising, trying to drive the message home that we support the sport that they like, and hopefully in tail that turns into sales for us.
Yeah, it's definitely the other side of the racing business. It's this is what makes it happen. I've told people for a long time, and I've told all the NASCAR people, that I think that people like this are the people completely responsible for making NASCAR what it is today. I mean, 10 years ago, they weren't, you didn't see national television ads on television promoting a team that's involved in NASCAR and showing the tracks. People just didn't understand the sport. And by the media, television, radio, newspapers, they're actually doing a lot of things for NASCAR. Those people really realize it. But this wasn't near as hot a sport as it is now. And now I think it's really going to surpass baseball, football, and a lot of major ball and stick sports.
Last year, Santa brought Rusty a lifetime personal services contract, securing his future with Miller.
Now, you might think Wallace faces added pressure to perform, but that isn't part of the package.
If I had a sponsor that put pressure on me to perform, yeah, maybe there'd be some pressure. It'd be tense. But these guys aren't like that. I've won a lot of races. Now, there are some unfortunate individuals out there that are coming up in their career. They've got good sponsors, and the sponsors are new to the sport, and they really don't understand the sport like Miller does. And man, sometimes I feel like those guys are driving around with a gun to their head, perform or you're out, and they've got a lot of pressure on them. I don't have that.
I always preach to our folks that we need to have our racing program successful before he takes the track. All the things we're doing to try and sell beer, the advertising, the promotions, the radio advertising and programs happen 3 weeks, 4 weeks out from the race. So when Sunday hits, we hopefully have sold the products that we're going to sell in and around that program. Obviously, if he wins, it's a great bonus because we get the play on newspapers and television and everywhere else, and the excitement builds for the next race. But it's, like I said, it's a nice to have, but certainly not something that we count on all the time.
Now, when Rusty's not working for Miller here, you might find him here on the set, promoting the company's anti-drinking and driving campaign, along with some other rather famous chauffeurs.
Not only is he great on the track and great with our distributors, but we also involve him in a series of responsible drinking and driving commercials that is a great help because it's important for the fans to understand that while we're sponsoring a great race car driver like Rusty, Rusty is a responsible driver, and we want all of our fans to be responsible drivers also, and drinking and driving is something that we don't want to promote.
So you can see Rusty's fast pace on the track transcends his everyday life. Whether it's on the ground or in the air, Rusty Wallace is always on the move.
I'm constantly doing something, but when I go home, I walk in the house, Patty brings me a Miller, I'll sit down, we'll have a beer, I'll watch TV, and I'll get done with my favorite TV program or whatever, I go, what's next? I'll go to bed. I go to bed and I wake up. Now what I do? Oh, I leave and go to shop. So I've got to be doing something the whole time. And I can't stop and just quit and just pull the throttles completely back and relax. It's just not me. And so I'm caught up in that loop where you got to go, go, go. And I don't know when I'll ever quit, but I enjoy it.
The day concluded with a 2-hour appearance in Milwaukee where Rusty joined Dick Trickle, Elton Sawyer, and Butch Miller on behalf of Ford. Then finally the limo ride back to the airport, and at 9:30 at night, the 2.5-hour flight home to Charlotte.
Okay, let's see. It's tired and I'm getting late. It's late and I'm getting tired.
Hope you enjoyed that. Race fans normally don't get to see that, but believe you me, without the great sponsors we have in the sport of auto racing, we would not see the high level of competition we see week in and week out. Now let's take a look at what's coming up next week right here on Inside Winston Cup Racing.
Last July, tires told the tale when the Winston Cup Series made its second stop at Pocono. Jeff Bodine is still looking for his first win of 1995. He'll defend his title at the Miller Genuine Draft 500. We'll have the pre-race report.
It's been a year of Chevrolet dominance and record finds. Next week, we'll begin a two-part conversation with the series director, Gary Nelson. He's the man making the calls as NASCAR struggles to bring balance back to Winston Cup Racing.
Here's wishing Inside Winston Cup Racing a happy 10th anniversary. The IWCR mailbox is brought to you by Miller Genuine Draft. Our question is from Tim Ornsby from Felton, Delaware. How many testing sessions are race teams allowed in a year, and how does NASCAR regulate them?
Hi, I'm Robin Pemberton, crew chief for the Miller Genuine Draft Ford, driven by Rusty Wallace. Our teams are allowed 7 3-day test sessions at Winston Cup racetracks throughout the years. Teams with rookie drivers are allowed 10 3-day test sessions throughout the year. Starting in Atlanta, at the end of the year in Atlanta, there's a testing ban in force until January 1 of the following year. Goodyear tire tests are not held against us as part of our testing days. Thank you for writing in.
If you have a question, write to us at Inside Winston Cup Racing, Box 240-417, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28224.
If we use your question, you'll receive a Miller Genuine Draft Race Team Jacket and a copy of Speed Weeks 95, the official Daytona Speed Weeks commemorative book, signed by back-to-back Daytona 500 champion Sterling Marlin.
Well, our time's up. We got to go, and thanks to Rusty Wallace, the folks at Miller Brewing Company, and to crew chief Robin Timberton and his crew for allowing us to